Resident Evil has been terrorizing players for 28 years with moments that still haunt gamers decades later. Every jump scare, every stalker enemy, every body horror transformation has contributed to a franchise that defined what it means to be truly scared while holding a controller. Some moments made you flinch, others made you pause the game and walk away, and a few literally changed how horror games are designed forever. That's why today, I'm ranking the 12 most terrifying moments in Resident Evil history, from unsettling to absolutely traumatizing, starting with the moment that launched survival horror itself. The first zombie. The first zombie encounter in Resident Evil isn't just iconic, and after nearly 3 decades, it remains the template every horror game copies when introducing players to their nightmare. The scene unfolds in the Spencer Mansion's East Wing corridor. STARS member Kenneth Sullivan lies face down in a pool of blood. Players approach cautiously. A shambling figure crouches over the corpse, completely still. Then it moves. The zombie slowly turns its head, revealing a decomposing face mid-meal. White eyes lock onto the player in a lifeless stare. Blood drips from its mouth. WatchMojo ranked this as their #1 Resident Evil scare, calling it the iconic moment that started it all. But here's what makes this encounter devastatingly effective beyond the obvious gore. No music cue announces the danger. The fixed camera angle forces players to walk toward the threat rather than away from it. At this point in the game, you have zero frame of reference for what these creatures can do. The zombie doesn't lunge immediately, it rises slowly. That deliberate pacing gives players time to process exactly what they're seeing before being forced to react. And you're doing it with limited ammunition, no knowledge of how many bullets zombies take, and no idea if more are coming. Director Shinji Mikami designed this reveal to establish the mansion's fundamental rule. Nowhere is safe. Death lurks in every shadow. Every corpse might not be a corpse. The encounter's legacy extends far beyond Resident Evil itself. It established the template for first monster reveals across the entire horror gaming industry. Thousands of games have copied this exact structure. Show the aftermath first, let the player get close, then reveal the threat with agonizing slowness. The formula works because anticipation creates more fear than shock. But if one slow-moving zombie in a mansion corridor seems manageable, wait until you see what happens when Umbrella's experiments evolve beyond basic reanimation. The Bandersnatch. The Bandersnatch ambush in Code Veronica isn't just a jump scare. And decades later, players still remember the exact moment they realized Alfred Ashford's trap was more sadistic than they could have imagined. The setup feels straightforward enough. Claire Redfield gets trapped in a corridor when security shutters slam shut. Alfred taunts her over the intercom, his voice dripping with theatrical malice. A heavy door opens with an agonizingly slow animation. A heartbeat sound effect pulses. Claire enters what appears to be an empty room containing only unmanned machine guns mounted on tripods. Valuable weapons just sitting there? Players move forward to collect them. Then a Bandersnatch attacks without warning, but the creature's design exploits something deeper than surprise. The Bandersnatch is a failed tyrant experiment with sickly pale skin and one grotesquely elongated arm. That single functional arm stretches across impossible distances. Players who think they've maintained safe spacing discover the creature can grab them from 10 feet away. The combat creates an impossible choice. Effective weapons like explosive-tipped arrows are resources you desperately want to save for later tyrant encounters, but fighting this thing with standard ammunition means enduring a battle that drags on while that arm keeps reaching. And if it grabs you, the Bandersnatch delivers a one-hit, neck-snap kill animation. The real horror lies in the psychological setup. Alfred explicitly tells you a trap is coming. You know danger is ahead, but the empty room subverts every expectation. You expect an ambush. You find nothing. You relax. That's exactly when the attack triggers. This false safety technique became a horror game staple, but few games execute it with such calculated cruelty. The slow door animation builds dread. The heartbeat sound effect primes anxiety. The machine guns promise reward. Every element conspires to make you believe the trap already failed or never existed. The Bandersnatch's appearance feels like punishment for trusting the game's own setup. Players describe the encounter as genuinely shocking even when replaying the game. The elongated arm remains visually disturbing. The instant death grab animation never stops being brutal, and Alfred's mocking laughter afterward adds insult to literal injury. But if Alfred's sadistic games seem cruel, wait until you experience a puzzle where solving it correctly still means watching someone burn alive. Happy birthday. The Happy Birthday tape in Resident Evil 7 isn't just disturbing. And unlike every other puzzle in the franchise, solving it perfectly still forces you to watch a man die screaming. Lucas Baker's Death Trap represents the series' darkest foray into Saw-style psychological horror. Players control Clancy, a cameraman who documented the Baker family before their infection. He wakes up in a locked attic room. An animatronic clown sits at a table holding a lit birthday candle. The objective seems simple enough. Light the candle and place it on a cake. Motion-activated sprinklers extinguish every attempt. The puzzle requires finding items scattered around the room to bypass the sprinklers. But then you realize what Lucas actually designed. The solution requires increasingly degrading actions. You must reach into a disgusting toilet filled with filth to retrieve a telescope. You spill oil across the floor while retrieving a winding key from a dummy's stomach. A balloon trap pierces Clancy's body with a quill pen, and he screams in pain. The combination lock uses disturbing symbols: a child swinging, a crow on a bell, a fetus. Throughout the entire ordeal, Lucas watches via security camera, commenting gleefully on Clancy's suffering like he's providing director's commentary on his own torture film. Every action feels violating. The toilet reach makes players physically recoil. The oil spill seems like a puzzle mistake until you realize it's deliberate. The quill pen attack punishes you for trying to progress. One player described it as delivering one of the most dreadful feelings they'd ever experienced in Resident Evil. Here's the part that breaks you. Even after solving every puzzle correctly, the game does not permit Clancy to survive. When the candle finally reaches the cake, it detonates. The flames ignite the spilled oil. You watch helplessly in first-person perspective as Clancy burns alive, screaming and trying to extinguish himself. The VHS tape ends with his death. Later, Ethan must solve the same puzzle with knowledge gained from watching a man die. And when you enter that room, you discover Clancy's charred corpse still sitting where he burned. The achievement for completing the puzzle is literally called Out of the Frying Pan. Lucas designed a puzzle where victory equals death. There's no way to save Clancy, no alternative solution, just inevitable immolation. But if psychological torture through puzzle solving seems horrific, wait until you see what happens when a southern grandmother mutates into something that defies human biology entirely. Marguerite's transformation. Marguerite Baker's boss fight in Resident Evil 7 isn't just body horror, and after 2 encounters with her controlling insect swarms, nothing prepares you for what she becomes in that greenhouse. The setup establishes her as dangerous but human. Marguerite patrols the old house with a lantern that commands wasps and flies. She mumbles about unwanted guests and her family. Her movements are jittery and unnatural, but recognizably human. The first encounter in the main house shows her crawling through walls. Creepy, sure, but still within the bounds of mold-infected mutation. The greenhouse confrontation seems like it'll follow the same pattern. Shoot her enough times, she retreats, you progress, but then she transforms into something that shouldn't exist in nature. Her limbs elongate grotesquely, joints bending at impossible angles. She scrambles up walls and across ceilings like a humanoid spider, defying gravity entirely. Her voice drops to a deep, demonic register that sounds nothing like human vocal cords should produce. Most disturbingly, an insect hive erupts from her abdomen. Players describe it as hornet's nest underwear. The hive constantly spawns stinging creatures that swarm around her and attack independently. The greenhouse's multi-level layout transforms into a nightmare arena. Marguerite attacks from gaps in ceilings, bursts through windows without warning, and emerges from cracks in walls you didn't know existed. Her ability to traverse any surface means no vantage point provides safety. Standing on upper walkways just puts you at face level when she crawls across the ceiling. Hiding on the ground floor means she drops down from above. Fire weapons offer the best damage against the exposed abdomen hive, but limited fuel forces you into close quarters, and when you're that close, the insect swarm becomes overwhelming. You must target her hive or head while she shrieks and moans in voices that sound barely human. The audio assault matches the visual horror. Developer interviews reveal Marguerite was designed to represent pure creature feature body horror within RE7's framework. Jack embodies slasher films. Lucas represents psychological torture. Marguerite channels the grotesque transformation horror of films like The Fly. Her design references David Cronenberg's body horror aesthetic. The DLC adds another nightmare layer. In the bedroom segment, if Marguerite catches you, she sprouts a centipede from her mouth and devours your face. That single animation cements her as one of the franchise's most viscerally upsetting creations. Her transformation from jittery southern grandmother to eldritch insect queen represents Resident Evil at its most physically revolting. But if watching a human become a spider seems impossible to top, wait until you learn about the zombie variant that fundamentally broke survival horror's safety rules. Crimson Heads. The Crimson Head mechanic in the Resident Evil remake isn't just a new enemy type, and after the original game trained players that dead zombies stay dead, this system fundamentally altered what survival horror could be. The first mandatory encounter occurs in the Mirror Corridor on Spencer Mansion's second floor. Players pass through this hallway multiple times collecting items and solving puzzles. An immovable corpse lies in the center of the corridor. You walk past it, nothing happened. You walk past it again, still nothing. The game conditions you to accept this corpse as environmental decoration, safe, inert, part of the scenery, but then you return with the dog collar needed for the armor room puzzle. The corpse suddenly rises with red-tinged skin, glowing crimson eyes, and elongated claws like twisted knives. Most terrifyingly, it sprints, not shambles, not stumbles. It runs at full speed directly at you. One Steam user wrote that the first Crimson Head stood up as they were walking past and it gave them chest pains. Another described shooting a Crimson Head's head clean off with a shotgun, only to have the headless corpse reanimate and grab them anyway. The mechanic's brilliance lies in its systemic horror. Every zombie you kill now presents a choice. Burn the corpse with limited kerosene. You only have approximately 15 uses total for the entire game. Decapitate zombies with critical shotgun headshots. But critical hits are random chance, and shotgun shells are precious. Or avoid killing zombies entirely. But that means navigating hallways filled with active threats. Creature designer Masaki Yamanaka explained that traditional zombies were getting old, so their revival as stronger and faster Crimson Head zombies added fresh kinds of terror and gameplay elements. The system transformed resource management from tactical consideration into constant anxiety. Every cleared area becomes potentially dangerous again. Every corpse becomes a ticking time bomb. The remake also weaponizes nostalgia against veterans. The infamous dog hallway from the original occurs in the West Wing first floor corridor, but Capcom delayed the scare. In the first passage, the glass merely cracks. Players who know the original moment relax, thinking they avoided it. Then on the return trip, dogs burst through from the opposite direction. The developers knew exactly what veterans expected and punished them for that knowledge. The Crimson Head system proved that horror games could maintain tension even in familiar areas. No space stays safe. No victory stays permanent. Every action creates future consequences. But if zombies that refuse to stay dead seem terrifying, wait until you meet the patriarch who makes zombies look fragile by comparison. Jack Baker. Jack Baker smashing through a wall in Resident Evil 7 isn't just a shocking moment, and after the dinner scene establishes him as dangerous, nothing prepares you for the sheer unstoppable force he becomes. The setup pays explicit homage to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Ethan Winters wakes up tied to a chair at the Baker family dinner table. Jack sits at the head, carving a rotting animal carcass. Marguerite serves unidentifiable meat. Lucas sits across from Ethan with a smirk. The silent grandmother watches from her wheelchair. Jack insists Ethan eat. When Ethan refuses, Jack stabs Lucas's arm and rips it clean off. Lucas responds with, "God damn it, old man, not again," as though this is routine family behavior. But then Ethan escapes his restraints and runs. Jack's pursuit begins in the living room. Players sprint through the doorway, desperately searching for an exit or hiding spot. Without warning, Jack smashes through a solid wall to attack. Not a door, not a window, a wall. Screen Rant called it a Hall of Fame horror gaming moment because it establishes that nowhere is structurally safe from this man. Jack's design draws directly from Jack Nicholson's portrayal of Jack Torrance in The Shining, creating an archetypal slasher film killer who taunts victims while demonstrating supernatural resilience. Bullets barely slow him down. Headshots make him stumble for 2 seconds before he resumes pursuit. He wields shovels and axes with gleeful abandon, swinging them in wide arcs that force players into corners. If he catches Ethan, he demonstrates demonstrates his contempt by twisting Ethan's arm until it snaps with a sickening crack, then breaking his neck while calling him pathetic. The first-person perspective makes every attack feel personally violating. You see Jack's hands reaching for your throat, you hear his breathing inches from your face, you feel trapped in Ethan's body as bones break. Producer Jun Takeuchi ordered late rewrites specifically because the original Baker behavior was overly normal. The final version perfectly balances Southern hospitality and homicidal mania. Jack offers food and family while simultaneously threatening to murder you. That cognitive dissonance creates psychological horror beyond the physical violence. Here's what breaks the entire game's reality. The subsequent revelation confirms that Jack actually killed Ethan in this sequence. Ethan died. The mold reanimated him as a revenant. Every moment after the dinner scene occurs, while controlling a walking corpse. That single detail recontextualizes the entire campaign. But if one unkillable man hunting you through a house seems relentless, wait until you meet the bioweapon specifically designed to never stop hunting STARS, members, Nemesis. Nemesis's introduction in Resident Evil 3 isn't just a memorable entrance, and after 2 games of zombies that shuffle slowly, this bioweapon fundamentally redefined what relentless pursuit means in horror games. The scene occurs outside the Raccoon City Police Department. Jill Valentine encounters terrified STARS member Brad Vickers stumbling toward her. He's panicking, barely coherent. Quote 2, Brad gasps. Quote 3. Before Jill can respond, a massive figure appears behind Brad. Nemesis extends a tentacle and instantly impales Brad through the head. Brad dies screaming, his body going limp. Nemesis tosses the corpse aside like garbage. Then he turns to Jill and growls his iconic line in a deep, inhuman voice. Quote 4. But the terror doesn't end when the cutscene does. Producer Shinji Mikami wanted to introduce a new kind of fear into the game, a persistent feeling of paranoia. Drawing inspiration from the T-1000 in Terminator 2, Nemesis could pursue players through approximately 5 rooms. He followed through doors, a first for the series. He never permanently died until the finale. The constant threat transformed every action into risk calculation. Games Radar called him the deadliest villain in the history of survival horror. Nemesis's mechanics created constant uncertainty. He could appear anywhere within scripted encounter zones, but you never knew when. Defeating him temporarily yielded weapon upgrades like the eagle parts for Jill's pistol, incentivizing risky combat. His arsenal evolved throughout the game. Physical attacks escalated to rocket launchers, then flamethrowers. After enough damage, his coat burned away, revealing grotesque tentacle mutations underneath. Players describe bursting through a door with Nemesis directly behind them, like he'd be touching you if you'd been even a millisecond slower. The only guaranteed safety was save rooms. But even there, his distant growl sometimes echoed through walls, reminding players that rest was temporary. Here's what made him truly unstoppable. Nemesis possessed actual AI-driven pursuit, not just scripted appearances. He tracked players across multiple rooms simultaneously. If you entered the boutique on Raccoon City's main street, he could follow you inside, smash through the back room, and continue pursuit into the alley. No other RE enemy before him had demonstrated that level of persistent hunting behavior. But if one bioweapon programmed to hunt STARS member seems nightmarish, wait until you see the creature that hunts by sound alone while clinging to ceilings above your head, the Licker. The Licker's introduction in Resident Evil 2 isn't just a jump scare, and after the game spends 10 minutes training you to watch windows for zombie dogs, it exploits that learned behavior to deliver one of gaming's most effective misdirections. The scene unfolds in the RPD's west corridor on the first floor. Players notice something dart past a window. A fraction of a second glimpse, just enough to register movement. Veterans of RE1 immediately start watching every window obsessively, expecting Cerberus dogs to crash through glass. The game knows this. The game counts on this, but the attack comes from above. Players advance to find a broken window, a disabled security shutter, and an RPD officer's headless corpse. Blood pools across the floor. Something drips into it from overhead with a wet plop. The player instinctively looks up. A CGI cutscene triggers, revealing a skinless humanoid creature clinging to the ceiling. Exposed musculature glistens. A visible pulsing brain protrudes from its skull. An impossibly long tongue hangs from its mouth. The Licker drops down with a meaty, wet sound that makes players physically recoil. At this stage of the game, You typically possess only a handgun with approximately 5 bullets. Lickers require multiple shotgun shells to kill effectively. They can climb walls and ceilings, meaning vertical space offers zero safety. Their tongue attack can instantly decapitate if it connects. Players describe the panic of unloading their entire pistol magazine while the licker barely flinches. The subtlety distinguishes this from cheaper horror. Rather than a loud audio sting, the reveal builds through environmental storytelling. The window movement establishes threat direction. The corpse confirms lethality. The dripping blood creates anticipation. Players feel the trap closing before it springs. That dread carries more weight than any jump scare could. Here's the mechanic that elevates it beyond a single encounter. Lickers hunt by sound. Walking slowly could avoid detection entirely, but combat noise attracted them from adjacent rooms. In the RE2 remake, this creates compounding terror with Mr. X. Fighting a licker makes noise that summons the tyrant. Fleeing from Mr. X by running might lead directly into licker ambushes. Every action feeds into escalating danger. The creature design itself exploits primal disgust. Skinless bodies trigger deep evolutionary revulsion. The exposed brain suggests vulnerability that the creature's actual durability contradicts. The tongue represents a weapon that violates personal space in ways bullets cannot. But if a creature that hunts by sound seems terrifying, wait until you meet the test subject who survived every virus Umbrella created and cannot be killed no matter how much ammunition you waste. Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor in the Resident Evil remake isn't just an unkillable enemy, and after 30 years of experiments that killed everyone else in under a week, she represents something Umbrella's scientists literally described as biologically impossible. The first encounter subverts survival horror's most sacred rule. Players enter a cabin in the Spencer Mansion courtyard. A typewriter sits on the desk, the universal Resident Evil symbol of safety. Save rooms are inviolable spaces where no enemy can reach you. Players relax, save their game, and collect the square crank needed for progression. Then Lisa attacks and knocks the player unconscious. The game violates its own safety contract, but Lisa's terror goes far deeper than breaking save room rules. Umbrella kidnapped Lisa Trevor and her mother Jessica in November 1967. Lisa was 14 years old. They needed test subjects for the progenitor virus. Most subjects died within 72 hours of infection. Lisa survived. Then they injected her with Type A virus. She survived. Type B virus. She survived. The experimental NE alpha parasite that drove every other host violently insane within minutes. Lisa retained enough consciousness to recognize her mother's face 30 years after their separation. Research files from September 1998 note that Lisa had zero cellular degradation despite prolonged viral exposure. That's not unusual. That's physically impossible. Viruses destroy cells. That's how they function. But Lisa's cells weren't just surviving viral infection. They were using the viral DNA to enhance themselves. Dr. William Birkin wrote in July 1988 that subject Lisa Trevor represents an evolutionary dead end that somehow became viable. His later notes reference mechanisms beyond our understanding, without ever explaining what those mechanisms actually are. Here's what makes her encounters nightmare fuel. In the underground catacombs, Lisa actively patrols. She hunts players through disorienting fixed camera tunnels filled with poisonous snakes. She cannot be killed at this point in the game. No amount of ammunition will stop her permanently. Shotgun blasts to the head make her stumble. She stands back up. Grenade launcher explosions knock her down. She rises again, moaning and rattling her chains. The face mask reveals her true horror. When Umbrella sent female staff disguised as her mother to pacify her, Lisa recognized the deception. She tore off their faces and stitched them together as a grotesque mask, believing she needed to return Mother's face to her. Her deteriorating diary entries chronicle cognitive decline through increasingly childish handwriting. Director Shinji Mikami stated he wanted people to feel guilty for attacking an innocent victim. The final confrontation occurs at an underground altar. Lisa opens her mother's coffin, recognizes Jessica's skull by scent alone, and screams in anguish before throwing herself into the abyss. Rock Paper Shotgun called her story the highlight of the game, a rare instance where understanding a monster's tragedy makes it more disturbing rather than less. But if one unkillable pursuer in a mansion seems oppressive, wait until you experience a stalker whose footsteps echo through an entire police station and never stop no matter where you hide. Mr. X. Mr. X's stalking system in the RS2 remake isn't just an improved enemy AI. And after the game gives you 2 hours to feel safe exploring the RPD station, his arrival transforms every corridor into a minefield of sound-based anxiety. His introduction establishes inhuman strength. The tyrant lifts helicopter wreckage like it's made of tinfoil, revealing his massive frame in a trench coat and fedora. Then he begins hunting. Unlike the 1998 original's scripted appearances in specific rooms, this Mr. X possesses sophisticated AI that tracks players regardless of room separation. Director Kazunori Kadoi confirmed that if you hear Tyrant's footsteps in the vicinity, you can definitely bet that he is actually in close proximity, but the sound design carries the real terror. Kadoi's team created the footsteps by recording different sounds and mixing them together to create a specific sound that would carry that level of impact someone of Tyrant's build would create. Those footsteps are deliberately imprecise, loud enough to cause constant anxiety, vague enough to prevent pinpointing his exact location. 3 distinct audio phases mirror emotional states. Distant footsteps create stress. Door opening sounds trigger paranoia. Metallic clanging means he's in the same room and you need to run immediately. Mr. X can hear gunshots, running footsteps, door slamming, and even zombie attack sounds. His audible detection radius spans 3 rooms. Fight zombies near the main hall, and he appears from the west corridor 30 seconds later. Slam a door while fleeing, and the sound draws him directly to your position. Players must move slowly, use knives instead of guns, and avoid all combat when possible. He cannot be killed during stalking segments. Shooting him causes temporary stagger. On hardcore difficulty, recovery is nearly instant. Players discovered through frame-by-frame analysis that he moves at 4 times walking speed when not visible on screen, slowing only when close enough that players might hear the difference. Reddit investigations confirmed no teleportation occurs. His presence is always real. He's actually walking those halls. The result transforms every action into risk calculation. Fighting zombies attracts Mr. X. Fleeing zombies by running also attracts Mr. X. Standing still while zombies approach means getting grabbed, which makes noise, which attracts Mr. X. Only designated safe rooms provide respite, and even there, players report anxiety hearing his footsteps pass by outside. One reviewer wrote that opening doors has never been this frightening, capturing how the remake weaponized basic navigation against players. Every door could reveal the tyrant standing on the other side. Every corner could hide him waiting in ambush. Every puzzle requires listening for footsteps while vulnerable with inventory open. But if relentless stalking through a police station seems nightmarish, wait until you experience the jump scare that literally defined what video game horror could achieve: the dogs. The dogs crashing through the window in Resident Evil isn't just a famous jump scare, and after nearly 30 years of horror games copying this exact moment, it remains the single most influential terror sequence in video game history. The scene occurs in Spencer Mansion's first floor L-shaped corridor. Players traverse a hallway lined with windows. Background music drops to near silence. The fixed camera positions the player character at the far edge of the screen, walking away from the camera. Nothing suggests danger. The hallway appears to be a simple transition space between rooms. Then, without warning, a zombie dog explodes through a window inches from the camera. The creature appears enormous and immediate, filling the screen. Before players can process the first attack, a second dog crashes through another window, but the design brilliance goes far deeper than simple shock value. Academic research cites this as a classic game startle effect that influenced the entire horror gaming industry. IGN ranked it among gaming's most terrifying moments across all media. The cinematic composition exploits psychological vulnerabilities. Placing the character distant from the camera makes the dog's proximity to the viewer feel like a personal attack. The window-lined corridor trained players subconsciously to consider it a transition space rather than a danger zone. Players walk through hallways constantly in games. This hallway looks identical to every other safe hallway. The double dog assault prevents recovery between shocks. The first dog triggers a panic response. The second dog hits while players are still reacting to the first, compounding the terror. Destructoid wrote an entire article about this moment, calling it one of gaming's defining scares that set the standard for video game horror. Player testimonials spanning 3 decades confirm its lasting impact. One wrote that the jump scare probably took a good 5 years off their life and was a revelation that nowhere in the Spencer mansion was truly safe. Another admitted they were so freaked out when the dogs came bursting through the window that they instantly turned the game off and never played it again. Forums from 1996 through 2024 contain variations of that dog scene, mentioned with reverence and residual fear. The 2002 remake weaponizes this legacy with surgical precision. Glass merely cracks on the first passage. Players who know the original moment tense up. Nothing happens. They relax, thinking they avoided it or that Capcom removed it. Then on the return trip, dogs attack from the opposite direction. The developers knew exactly what veterans expected and punished them for anticipating the original timing and location. The moment established that horror games could deliver cinematic shocks rivaling film. It proved video games possessed unique advantages for terror. The player controls the pacing. The player chooses when to walk down that hallway. That agency makes the betrayal of safety more powerful than any movie could achieve. But if the most influential jump scare in gaming history seems impossible to top, wait until you experience the moment that made players uninstall Resident Evil Village and refuse to continue. House Beneviento. House Beneviento's basement sequence in Resident Evil Village isn't just the scariest moment in the game, and after players begged Capcom to tone down RE7's horror, this single section made thousands literally uninstall and refuse to continue. The approach establishes dread before entering. After defeating Lady Dimitrescu, players cross a fog-shrouded bridge overlooking a waterfall. Grisly lynched bodies hang from trees. The manor sits isolated, windows dark. Upon entering and descending an elevator, the game strips away every weapon, item, and piece of equipment. For the first time since RE7's opening, players are completely defenseless. No guns, no healing items, no escape tools, but the psychological horror only escalates from there. The basement unfolds as a nightmare puzzle box. A human-sized mannequin of Mia lies on a table. Players must dismantle it piece by piece, possibly representing Ethan's guilt over her death. Dim lighting illuminates peeling floral wallpaper. After retrieving a key from a well, players descend pitch-black stairs described as the scariest moment in the entire game. Upon returning, the workshop has transformed. The mannequin is gone, the table is covered in blood. Then you hear it. Coos, giggles, something calling the baby appears. An overgrown fetus whose body is an amalgamation of limbs with a massive drooping mouth trailing an umbilical cord. It represents Ethan's subconscious fears about his daughter Rose. Given form by antagonist Donna Beneviento's hallucinogenic powers, capture means instant death. The baby devours Ethan whole. Players can only hide under beds or in closets, listening to its gurgling approach while it searches for them. The creature's design evokes David Lynch's Eraserhead. Its cries eerily sound like a human infant distorted into wrongness. The sequence's music recalled the IT remake for many players. Community consensus is overwhelming. One player wrote that, out of the entire game, this section was by far the scariest and nothing else came close to it. Another admitted they bought the game when it first came out, uninstalled it when they got to House Beneviento because they were that scared, they basically shat themselves every time they opened a door. Producer Koshi Nakanishi acknowledged that some players found it hard to finish Resident Evil 7, leading the team to generally tone down RE Village's horror. Except here. Here they created what many call probably one of the scariest levels ever created for a Resident Evil game. The segment's power comes from total helplessness. No combat skills matter. No weapons exist. No escape except puzzle solving while hunted by something that defies rational understanding. The baby doesn't follow RE's usual bioweapon rules. It's pure nightmare logic made manifest. But these aren't isolated incidents. Every single one of these 12 moments connects to something bigger about why Resident Evil has dominated horror gaming for nearly 3 decades. If you enjoyed this video and want to see Resident Evil's biggest mysteries explained, click the video on screen now